Okay, welcome to the May Sonification World Chat Geo SonNet project meeting. I am really thrilled with this one because I feel like at this point we're really generating some momentum in terms of not only the number of people who are starting to show up or let me know that something went wrong with my invitations, and and the fact that the questions or the speakers are starting to emerge requests, and I have plans out through July right now. So I'm really glad to see where we're coming. And as things settle down with the federal government, we will continue to chart a course forward in this project. So welcome everyone. Let's start with some introductions. Yes, I am Kate Meredith. There's only a couple new people on, but I am the den mother of data sonification here at the Sonification World Chat. So I strive to just keep people, keep the community growing and look for opportunities for people to build partnerships and look for funding. And I will get back to that very challenging job shortly. We'll see how we can do on that. So let's start with, we're just going to go along the top. Both Bruce and Mary will be introducing themselves later as speakers. So I'll start with Steve.
Steve Everett. I am an evaluator for the Sonification World Chat project, and trying to participate in every meeting so that I can keep up on what's happening and better evaluate it.
Okay, Adrian.
Hello, so I'm Adrian Provenzano. I'm a STEAM educator and musician, and I also do education outreach as part of NASA's Solar System Ambassadors Program.
Okay, that's excellent. I'm going to go to Cheryl. You are muted, Cheryl. Try it again.
Okay, gotcha. Let's try this again. Cheryl Fogelhatch. I do museum consulting and accessibility things. These days, my primary work is in tactile media. I've got planning for an exhibit of art next year, so delving into curation, which is a lot of fun.
Thanks, Cheryl. Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Pinkney. I work at Woodsole Oceanographic Institution as a research assistant and access assistant with Amy Bauer.
Thanks, Anna. Kathy.
Mute. Hi, I'm Kathy Bailey Allen. I work with Steve in the Everett Group on evaluation.
Thanks, Kathy. And Soleil.
I am Soleil Hyman. I'm a fifth-year graduate student at the University of Arizona, and I'm part of the Light Sun project, and also I'm one of the organizers of the Sonity conference, which I'll be talking about in a couple of minutes.
Okay, thanks. Amy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Amy Bauer. I'm a blind oceanographer at Woodsole Oceanographic Institution. I've been here for over 35 years. And I've been dabbling with data sonification for the last 5 or so years, particularly through a project called Accessible Oceans, where we took some samples of ocean data and created pilot auditory displays with them that included data sonification. So we're hoping to build on that work in a grant with the, well, we don't have the grant yet, but maybe with the Boston Museum of Science. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. Robert, you're up next.
Hello, my name is Robert Alexander. I am a data sonification / audification specialist. So I integrated audification facilities into the CETA web, NASA's coordinated data analysis web for all the NASA data archives so we can listen to NASA missions. Currently doing some work with Professor Leaf to take data from the Spur volcano and to create a real-time data stream from that. I also am the CEO of Auralab Technologies Incorporated, and we do real-time sonification of breath for meditation. I will leave it there. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and if you haven't tried it yet, I am still highly recommending that. Been using it. Carrie, introduce yourself to us. Welcome.
I'm Carrie Fillion. I'm a postdoc at Center for Computational Astrophysics. I'm also one of the SOC for SonT.
Okay, welcome. We're really glad to have you. Lev, hi, and how are you doing?
Hi, a little bit exhausted, but I'm Lev. I run a small nonprofit called Science Voices that works on challenges in science education, especially using digital technologies.
Okay, thanks, Lev. And Lev, what continent are you on? Are you still in Brazil?
Yeah, I'm still in Brazil. I'm here for a few years.
Okay, I just expect you somehow to show up in some other country on any particular day. So I just checked.
Yeah, no, this time I'm in Brazil.
Okay, okay, thanks. Yes, and yeah, I'm not sure what continent you're on right now. Is it you over on the island or in our time zone?
Hey, oh, me?
Yes.
Sorry, I was miles away. Yeah, I'm in Hawaii still.
Okay, excellent. And how are you doing?
July? Yeah, we're all good. I'm Jess. Hi, everyone. I am a postdoc of astrophysics at Vanderbilt University. I'm also the Director of Communications for the Frisch Center for Autism and Innovation and the CEO of the Neuroverse Initiative, which is a nonprofit that works at the intersection of astrophysics and neurodiversity. And I'm great. I'm doing great today, Kate. Thank you for asking.
Okay, that's excellent. Scott, I'm thrilled to see you here. I hope all is well with you. I know things have been chaotic, so welcome.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Scott Fleming. I'm an astronomer working at the Space Telescope Science Institute. My team runs the data archives for NASA's space telescopes like HST and James Webb and the upcoming Roman telescope. And I also work on getting more data sonification into the archives for use for research purposes.
Thanks, Scott. Micah, welcome. I'm really glad that you're here.
Hi, thank you. So should I say something about myself? Sorry.
Yes, please do introduce.
Yeah, so my name is Micah. I'm an undergraduate at University of Louisville pursuing a math degree, but I'm also very interested in data science, so in data sonification. So.
And Micah has been providing some additional resources on the Slack channel. So if you are in need of joining that or interested in joining that, please, that is also the link to join that is included on the agenda. And I put the link in the chat so you can find that. If you can't, let me know later. I don't want to spam our chat room right now with that long URL, so I'll do it at the end of the meeting again. So we've done our introductions and just keep an ear out for familiar voices, and let's keep looking for partnerships to build. Community groups. Adrian, do we have any activity with the Learn group right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think it I think Learn needs to, at this point, determine what its role is with respect to the Geo SonNet project. For those that are part of the call that aren't familiar with it, the Sonification World Chat that Kate started, that Geo SonNet is connected with, also has a subgroup called Learn. We engage with discussions regarding education and outreach and how that connects with sonification, because there are different ways that sonification is created and used in those contexts as opposed or related to the research purposes of sonification. The structure of that can be quite different. And over the last few years, we had worked on drafting a possible lesson plan that used sonification of the M51 galaxy, and then combining that with visuals and tactile and working on lesson planning. So we have not determined what our role is with regard to GeoSonNet, but certainly as a STEAM educator, I know that there are many ways that education and outreach can certainly connect in this way. And I'm really interested in what Mary has to say in her presentation today, because I think that can also connect with it as well. So we don't have anything yet, but I will contact Fia and see if we want to try to get started on something.
And I'm going to be reaching out
and
to you.
Fia was the.
Yep. And I had.
Sure. And I was just going to say, and Fia Damsa, she's also part of this project, both Sonification World Chat and Geo SonNet, and she has been the lead of the Learn group.
Okay, and thanks. Yeah, one of the things I have been in my pursuit of looking at speakers and putting together different sequences of pathways forward, did talk to Carla Scaletti some time ago about her speaking at one of these, and I was really impressed with. You sent me her keynote speech from the ICAD conference in 2017. And I've listened to it a couple of times, and her whole structure of that keynote and making a case for sonification taking a launching more, paying more attention to education as a way of promoting sonification, the logic behind that, and was really sound. And I hope to get her to come and do a kind of a retrospective on that, and then also maybe give us some guidance too as what might be a good project that we could look at and start because as we look at some of the funding challenges that are here right now, I think that it might be wise for me to step into a role of actually looking at possible funding, like actually involved in grant writing, because what I'm seeing amongst the community right now that I'm keeping in touch with is people are just exhausted from trying to just stem the tide of whatever's happening or deal with the sheer number of changes. So just knowing that, letting you know that those are some of the things I'm looking at now, and it looks like I will be paying attention more to how can we really get the education piece going in the next few months. All right.
And just as a quick follow on from that, because again, there are some people today who are new to the sessions, which is great. When we talk about education and outreach, it's not just sonification projects that are intended to play a role with education. It's also the sort of meta aspect of how do you teach people what sonification is, and how can you teach sonification to very young learners, even preschoolers and elementary school students as well. How do you start to incorporate that in the same way I think Scott has often talked about? People have to learn what a graph is and how a mathematical graph works. And so it's the same thing with sonification. And because I'm a musician and others in this community, or many are musicians in one way or another, the music, learning to listen and sound and audification, that those musician skills and listening skills also play an important role with sonification. So I'm just tossing that out because some on this Zoom today may also be musicians or interested in audio in that way, and that whole aspect of it connects with how do you raise the profile that sonification is a methodology and it is a learning tool and can start at very young ages. Even though Geo SonNet is focused on researchers, they start at very young ages. So that's another aspect of the Learn project.
Thank you, Adrian. Actually did a pretty good job of paraphrasing what Carla's thesis is about why we should pay attention to particularly blind students and pushing sonification forward in terms of education of students with vision impairments. So excellent. So moving along, I love that we're picking up some additional people, but we will not be going back to introductions, but we want to welcome them as well. And if people have just logged on, if you just want to add your name to the chat and where you're from, we'll be, if we've got time at the end, we'll circle back to you. The next thing on our list of catch-ups are, I did put a link in the agenda document to the proposal that went into the AGU for a panel for the 2025 conference. I'm not sure when I'll hear back about that, but we will, once that's approved or modified, I'll get back to this group about how we might, what are the key components that we would like to see in on that panel discussion at the December AGU meeting. And then I'm looking at the Island Conference. That link to that is in there. Well, that's a disability access conference that is going to be focusing on sonification in September. It has been held for a number of years. I know Carrie Sapalo, who runs it, has been at these meetings and has I would like to see about attending that. I don't think the budget for GeoSonNet will allow me to go, so I will look at outside funding sources to go, but I have been invited to give a sonification talk at Princeton, so darn it, I'm going to make sure I go. So that if anyone else is interested in having a discussion about that conference with me or is nearby and would like to chat with me about it, just either let me know by email or join the Slack. The so a funding update, I think I pretty much told you about what I'm kind of pursuing at this point in terms of just trying to keep track of what's happening in terms of bills for National Science Foundation or NASA, and pausing to poke program officers. My original plan had been to having program officers speaking at the GeoSonNet about potential opportunities by now, but that isn't going to happen right now. So we will just continue. And now I would like, oh, good. I'm glad you're into, Soleil, you guys are into the agenda. Soleil, would you please, you put a link into the SonNet conference and we'd like to know more about it. So I'm going to hand it off to you or your colleague.
Great. And if you want to chip in at all on this, so as I mentioned, Soleil Hyman, I'm a grad student at University of Arizona in astrophysics, but Carrie and I are both in astrophysics and we're interested in sonification. I've been involved with the LightSon project for many years at this point. But Carrie and I, and I'm just going to drop this into the, it's a relatively short URL. It's going into the chat. I also linked it into the meeting notes. If people look, we're organizing a conference. We're part of the organizing for a conference in October at the Simons Foundation in New York City. It's October 20th through 22nd. The conference is called SONIP, which stands for Sonification for Research Techniques, Efficacy, and Applications. So the idea of this is that this is an interdisciplinary conference for people who are focusing on sonification, using sonification in research, because there are so many of us who are applying this, and I think especially since we have a mix of outreach and research in a lot of these events, we really wanted to focus on getting those people who are developing tools or doing actual research with it so that we can share ideas and methods for how we do it, and also efficacy measurements. So, how do you test if your sonification method for research is doing what you think it is, and the best ways to do that. So I think that's a very brief overview. The idea is, I believe, I'm just looking, I believe June 15th is the deadline for abstracts. You can, if you're interested in giving a talk about a tool, like a tutorial on a tool you've developed, we've got that option, giving a talk as well. So there's an abstract thing, an abstract submission for that. And please feel free to share this information with any colleagues who aren't here who you think might be interested as well. And Carrie, did I miss anything? Anything else you want to add?
No, you did great. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. So that's the brief plug. Thanks for letting me come and talk about that. I might have to jump off a little early, but I'll try to stick along for as long as I can.
This is a really great opportunity. So does anyone have any questions for Soleil or Carrie? All right. And we'll make sure you know where to find them if you do have questions. So they've got the information in the agenda as well. All right, ICAD conference, and if I could have the whoever's got the cursors on Sonity, it's popping up a window that is covering the rest of my agenda. So if we can move off of that, that would be helpful. Don't know. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. ICAD conference audio mostly are coming in Portugal, June 30th to July 4th. Anybody, Bruce or whoever, would like to tell us about ICAD conference coming up? Anything? I'd love to go to Portugal, but the budget.
Yeah, as many of you know, the International Conference on Auditory Display, ICAD, has been around for 30 years and is an annual conference really at the center of the sonification and auditory display community. This year, it's exciting that it's co-occurring with Audio Mostly, which is another audio-related conference. They are back-to-back with I think 1 day of overlap in Coimbra, Portugal. It's too late to submit, of course, but certainly not too late to show up if you happen to be in the neighborhood, you know. But just remember, this is a community that is very very much overlapping with the Sonification World Chat and Geo SonNet.
Thank you.
And probably very overlapping with the Sonity conference workshop that Soleil just referred to. So.
Okay. Does anyone else from the community have any questions or other announcements for us? All right. And if there's anything you guys would like me to do in terms of helping to promote this, or if you have questions, don't hesitate. I do pride myself on my den mother role.
Yeah, I had a quick question about the Sonity that maybe Soleil could address. I was just curious as to how the conference came about, because there do seem to be different groups of people around the world that are involved with sonification, but what led to this event at this time?
Yeah, so great question. So Carrie and I went to there was a sonification workshop focused on astrophysics at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics last October. And we both had a really good time at that, but it was a mix of outreach and research focus, and we had both been talking that it'd be really nice to just be able to get all of the researchers together who are either developing methods or focusing on like applying it to research, to really have a focused like exchange of ideas and tools.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, I have a quick question too. Sorry, Kate. Is it in person only?
For the Sonity,
Yeah.
Amy? So currently, I believe all of the, and Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were planning for the session, like the plenary sessions, to be hybrid.
Okay.
I think the kind of breakout sessions were going to be remote, but if you're really interested in coming, and coming in person is a hardship or something, please get in touch with us. I can
Okay.
there is an email. I can also drop the email for the workshop into the chat if you want to reach out and talk about accommodations. Carrie's been great with talking to CCA, the Simons people, about trying to make sure there are like accommodations. I think we have that listed on our website as well, what's available. But yeah, please reach out if you're interested.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions before we go on? All right, thanks folks. And with that, it's time for everybody knows Bruce, Georgia Tech. All roads seem to lead back to Georgia Tech. I was at a Principals of the School for the Blind conference in April and met Brandon Biggs. And so he's also at Georgia Tech, and I adored his work in sonification. And so we'll be hearing from him in June. And so Bruce has managed to make so many of our connections and has been in this business for a long time. But today he's going to talk to us about the Coursera course that is available in sonification. And I thought that had, Adrian's brought it up a number of times. I think it has a great potential for those of us who are new to really think about some of the basics and getting our brains around some common language in the industry. So Bruce, with that, give us the spiel.
Well, as Kate mentioned, I've been kind of in this space for a long time, and one of the challenges is getting other people up to speed. We've been building tools for years, and we've been, Sonification Sandbox, and now the Sonification Studio, and Bobby Candy, who joined here, his group has built tools, and Robert Alexander, many groups have built sonification tools. But we felt that beyond teaching people how to use the tool, there's sort of the bigger educational picture here, trying to give people a sense of design and sense of the research and evaluation that goes into creation, right? So along with Emily Moore and some fine folks at the FET Center in Colorado. We partnered with them, and Brianna Tomlinson, who was a PhD student in my group at the time, took the lead on developing a Coursera course. So this Coursera course is freely available through the Coursera platform. You can complete it. You get a credential, I believe, but moreover, you get a fairly broad background in what you need to know and think about going into sonification and sound design. Obviously, I'm not going to teach the course here, but what I thought I'd do is share my screen, share the web page for the Coursera course, and show you the modules that are in there, and just give you a bit more of a flavor for what's in there. And if I can remember how to do that, share. I am going to share my.
And don't forget to click sound if you have sound.
Yeah, I don't think there is in this particular thing, but I'll do that. And you should now see a web page. This is the Coursera web page that you can go to, Sound and Sonification Design for Interactive Learning Tools. Our mission and in the collaboration with the FET Center was about interactive learning and simulations and so on. So this is not going to cover any and everything related to sound and sonification, but it gives a good overview. So I'm going to scroll down to the modules section here, and oh, I guess you can enroll for free. I wish that would go away. I don't know how to make that go away. So click on modules. Well, anyway, there are 6 modules in this course. The first one covers the very basics of sound, and it might seem to the people on this call that, well, why would we cover what sound is? Well, it turns out that you know, when you have an online course, a Coursera type course, you really never know who your enrollees, who the students will be. So you have to kind of start from the basics and scaffold everyone up. But we talk about sound and what it is, and what we hear and how we use sound. Many people are not really clear on, they don't have a good sense of how sound is actually part of our everyday life. We talk about things, different types of sound, and give people some vocabulary about differences between cautions and warnings and alerts and spear cons and spin decks and all of these terms that are in the field. We talk about things like mappings and so on. After we quickly get people up to speed in the concepts of sound, we talk about sound design, where we're really making the point that this is an intentional design activity, and we're not just playing beeps and bops and Foley sounds like you might get in a movie or some kind of video game, but rather this is a systematic mapping of information into sound, and treating it like a design process. After we go through that module, we talk about evaluation, and we think this is an important piece of any kind of sound design. You can't just make it up and say, ta-da, here it is, but rather you need to evaluate your sound and your sound design against your design goals. Why are you doing this, and what are you trying to create? Are you helping teachers? Are you helping students? Are you helping scientists? And so we want to give people a sense of how you can evaluate these different tools. There are lots of methods. Looking at performance, people may have, looking at their preferences and even their affective or emotional engagement with the sounds. So after we go through that, we talk about taking your design concepts and prototyping them. And this is at the conceptual level, right? We want to convey that design is an iterative process. So you want to make sketches, and you want to make prototypes, and you want to make more fleshed out prototypes, and finally you make the final version of whatever it is that you are designing. That's true for a visual interface. It's true for any kind of system or device, and certainly applies to sound and sonification as well. We talk about some of the tools that are out there, whether it's programming, whether it's drag and drop, whether it's quick and dirty kinds of things. We have some examples in there. And then the last substantial module is really some best practices, talking about the guidelines and getting people up to speed, because it turns out that there have been people using sound forever, and there have been people using sound in a systematic way in sort of the sonification world for decades. So much is known, and we know what works and we know what doesn't work. That still gives lots of possibilities for creative expression within that space. But we do feel like we can tell people, what's likely to work and what's likely to not work. So we also give the students in this Coursera course the opportunity to try it out and give them some hands-on experience. And then finally, the last module is kind of bringing it all together, sort of a review, some opportunities for brainstorming, planning and evaluating, and talking a little bit how you can incorporate sound and sonification into your teaching or your learning or design in general. So that's the overview of this particular course, and I'm going to, if I can figure out how to stop sharing. Was I even sharing? I think I was, right? Kate, were you seeing a web page? Or
yes, everything was shared.
Okay, because now I don't know how to unshare because it says to share.
Let me see if I have the power to do that. Okay.
You can unshare me.
Replace. I'm going to allow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to go back to me.
All right. Well, in any case, that's the overview of. Okay, now it looks like I'm not sharing anymore. That's the overview of the sound and sonification design for interactive learning tools on Coursera. We found over the last few years, people have been using it to get up to speed. There are parts of it that are really evergreen in the sense of the design and the concepts and so on. There are parts that that even despite our best efforts probably become dated a little bit, some of the tools and examples. But that's okay. There's always an evolution in these kinds of tools that are out there. All right, I'll pause there. If there are questions, happy to take any, or we can move on as people choose.
Okay. Adrian, you have taken the entire course. I've taken most of it, but tell us about your experience with that.
Yeah, sure. So a couple years ago when I first started to learn about sonification, and then at some point, I don't recall how I learned of the Coursera course, it seemed like it would be a good thing to try, and especially since it's free. So that's a great price point. And what was also great was that, like anything when you're learning, it's nice to have that sort of feedback. If I remember correctly, there might have been a community that was giving feedback that I was providing answers or comments, and I was getting feedback, but that may have been another course. It was very well paced, as Bruce explained. There's all the different segments, and then within each segment there were videos to do. There were homework assignments. I think that was where I was getting the feedback. So even though it's free, if you want to be eligible for the certificate at the end of the program, you do need to complete all the assignments, and you would get the sort of external reward of that little green check mark or whatever they use. So I think it's a minimal investment of time. It's a minimal investment of finances to do that. So I think if you have access to it, it's great. It did help me much better understand these concepts. Again, I'm coming at it as a musician, educator, STEAM educator, so I didn't have as much of the vocabulary and language from the audio engineer aspect. And while I understand the engineering design process, as Bruce said, it is all about the design process. So it gives you a great practical example of creating something and doing that iterative process through the end, and then going back over and over. The one thing that I think would have helped me, and I would recommend this for anybody that wants to try it out, is to provide yourself with the project that you want to be doing when you're done with the course. And that was one thing I didn't do. So as with any skill, when you sort of use it or lose it. So I wouldn't say I've lost what I learned in the course, because I've now been able to understand other sonifications much better in that way, because I understand the sonification, I understand the mapping process. But having any sort of hands-on, more projects to do right away. So I would assign that to yourself as something to do maybe over the next 6 weeks, and just keep yourself on the same schedule. If you want to make sure you really embed the knowledge into your being, and then do that. And I would also recommend then seeking out other sonifications that then you could analyze yourself. And to the extent that, you know, many of the people in this conversation have their materials available online, including the sort of the backstory, I think that's helpful as well. Then you could go to their work and you could understand, oh, I see how they map this, because now I better understand it. So I think it's very great. It's a very robust program. It does come at it from the sciences, like chemistry, electronics sort of approach. And if that is not your forte, that could be a little off-putting to some, but I say just show up and you know, you'll get a lot out of it, even if that's some of the examples are not from your particular discipline area.
And that, thank you for all of those kind words and that feedback, Adrian. The FET Center is all about physics education and science education, which is why the examples that we included lean more into chemistry, physics, dynamics, but they're all intended to be at the middle school or high school level, so there's nothing particularly challenging for most learners.
Yeah, and the FET materials have been well used. In fact, their efforts to create a more accessible experiences on their simulations, that project was terminated by the federal government, and they are struggling again to find funding to continue what was an accessibility project. So, yeah, just thought I'd put that in there, but we love them. Amy, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce, for that. I might have missed something at the beginning. This is an online course that one can take for free?
Yes, correct. It is through the Coursera platform.
Oh, I don't know that. Okay, all right.
Back in the day, there were edX and Coursera, and those were the sort of, you may recall the term MOOC, massively online open course or whatever.
Oh, okay.
You know, so Coursera was one of the platforms, but in any case, it's an online course where there are little very brief videos and little work assignments and things that you enroll as a student in this course for free. You go through it at your own pace, and at the end of it, if you do some of the assignments, I think there's a credential.
Okay, and is it accessible to someone using a screen reader?
Well, so this was built 5 years ago, before there were blind people. So I believe it is. I believe it is. I'm pretty sure that it's thoroughly accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I don't think anything in the course specifically talks about accessibility. It really focuses on the concept of what maybe I'm
Well,
getting that.
that's a good question too. That's not actually my specific question, is whether I, as a blind person, can take the course and be successful.
Yeah, and I
That's my,
believe that you can. There
Yeah.
are videos, but the videos have captions for deaf. So there's
Hmm.
descriptions for pretty much everything. The Coursera platform is a compliant WCAG
Okay.
compliant web platform. So,
Oh, I see. All right. Well, we'll check it out.
but
Thanks.
if there's any drama, then you know where to find me.
Okay. Thank you.
That's good. Okay, thank you. And in fact, that brings up a question that I have that's a little off topic, but as long as it's here, one of the things I would like to go with next month's presentation is someone to give an overview of the new WCAG rules that are coming up. I believe that there's things that are now being put in place. There's like a deadline for meeting particular standards, and that's part of the thing that Brandon will be talking about. But I wanted to see, I have a call out to a couple people who've been on World Chat who I know have a background in this, but they haven't not gotten back to me yet. So if anyone has other WCAG geeks out there that I should be reaching out to get someone else to come in and give us an overview of that to go with Brandon's presentation next month. Please Slack it to me, put it in the agenda, or put it in the chat. I'd be happy to follow up.
Can you put in the chat what you're mentioning? I'm not picking up on what that terminology is. WIC,
yeah,
something?
I can do that during when Mary does her presentation. I'll get that in there.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
WCAG is
Any other questions for Bruce?
Hearing none. I'll just say that WCAG is WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that was produced by the W3C consortium. And it is kind of an evolving go-to standard that many governments point to as the required level of accessibility for web content. It's not all accessibility guidelines.
And I believe that we're passing some benchmark that is upping the ante in terms of image accessibility, which in my mind leaves an opening for us to insert new data sonification projects. But I am not as familiar with that as I would like to be. So I would like to see a speaker talk to us.
I would suggest that Brandon is a great resource for that. In addition to the other things you may be arm twisting him to do.
Yes, I am already. He's got some really great. Yeah, we need to have all of our blind low vision people show up for the June presentation because he's got some map work that is knock your socks off. So looking forward to that. All right, with that, we're coming up on time to hear from Mary Edwards. I can't even remember how I found out about Mary, but I was looking for some more music people to represent and the grant when we were writing it, and geosciences, and Mary's work has really caught my attention in terms of how she thinks about and constructs sound interpretations and sonifications for her work. And I got a chance to talk to her, and now it's time for her to talk to y'all. And she did our earcon, so don't forget to go to the homepage of GeoSonNet and tap that earcon because it's delightful. And with that, Mary, welcome, and thanks for sharing about your work.
Thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure to be here. It's nice to see everyone. And I just wanted to say, Bruce, thank you very much for that insight on the program. I will be taking it as someone who is nascent to data sonification in its real meaty technical form. That course will be good for someone like myself who sort of sticks the big toe in the pond, but needs to dive in a little bit further. But I'm enjoying the understanding of the process. So I want to say also, after I talk a little bit, Kate, I'll just give you the signal to play successively the two short videos that correspond with my talk. So, hi everyone, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are in the world and in time. My name is Mary Edwards, and I'm a composer and environmental sound artist, and I investigate sound in natural and built environments. My practice encompasses installation, film scoring, and performance, and themes of temporality, impermanence, nostalgia, and the natural world recur throughout my work. And I'm interested in the emotive, historic, cinematic, and spatial properties of sound. Listening is and has always been an inherent and integral part of my process in conveying how all sounds have the potential to be habitable and how they can be transformative once you get inside them, as they are simultaneously intimate and immense. And that brings me to talk about an ongoing project, Everywhere We Are is the Farthest Place, which is a soundscape composition recreated from field recordings I gathered while on an Arctic expedition above the 78th parallel. That was the very expedition where I met Jen Kotler, who worked on the Hubble telescope, and Jen was the person who introduced me to you, Kate. And that was back in 2023, I believe, or late, shortly after we came back from the expedition. So the work is vibroacoustic natural events that have been captured, such as iceberg torrents, calving glaciers, whale song, and converging subterranean rivers on the meltwater channel that are now reimagined as an ode rather than an elegy. My intention is to take us to the outer space that resembles its earthly NASA terrestrial analog site of the Svalbard Arctic Desert and land us back down to praise our natural surroundings right now in the face of rapid change. Or, as I'd like to say, unother the others and decentralize the centered. And this pertains in part to the facet of environmental exclusion and how we can use our collective voice or expression in belonging and sustainability, even at its baseline. For example, in discussing climate change, its entry points are chronologically arbitrary. Who's an expert if we're all at the hands of nature? And are we speaking about what changes have occurred in, say, the past 7 days, or a month, or a year, or a century, or maybe a millennia? In any event, the common denominator is grief and or a great sense of loss. And at times it becomes very personal. And my piece, in part, is about facing and embracing, if only for a moment, the striking beauty and terror of the transformation. It also speaks to the breath and pulse point of the earth as reflected in our own emotional responses to places that have qualities of being both intimate and immense, so that there's joy and wonderment there too. And it can activate memories about other places we've been in our lifetime. And the concept of intimate immensity, as derived from the mid century work of French philosopher Gaston Bachelard in his book, The Poetics of Space, is what drives a significant part of my work. Spaces that are at once sublime and yet close and ensconcing, and places that can make one feel vulnerable because of their largesse, and at the same time hold you in these special nuances. Everywhere We Are as the Farthest Place is a living, breathing thing in constant transition, and my initial intention was to create a musical composition, and it quickly developed into a multi-iterative project. I made a decision early on to make the work as transformative as the very landscape and environment I was composing about, while drawing a parallel to another work in progress at that time called Tamalpais Higher. So back in 2022, I embarked on this project that I was also investigating in response to my encounters at Mount Tamalpais in Northern California, located in Sausalito, just north of the Marin Headlands, where I was in residency for that summer. And I'd always been intrigued by Mount Tam, as the locals and those in the know call it, by its eminence as a sacred epicenter and its geological and oceanographic origins. I was not only curious about what's on the mountain, but what lies within. I learned that seismologists and geoscientists have suggested that a blind thrust fault lies beneath the mountain. It's a fault line that runs upward on an angle and functions the way an aneurysm, say, functions in and affects the body. If one does exist under Mount Tamalpais and it ruptures, the result could be a devastating earthquake for the entire San Francisco Bay Area and its surrounding region. And it's difficult to predict if and when such a quake would occur. And even so, what might that activity sound like when the mountain that appears majestic yet dormant is sonorous? Much of how I envision this project synthesized around a passage from On the Importance of Natural Disasters by installation and land artist Walter DeMaria, in which he talks about natural disasters being looked upon the wrong way and that they might be the highest form of art to possibly experience. And from his musing that if all people who go to museums could just feel an earthquake, I drew another idea to create an imaginative soundscape by synthesizing field recordings from that area with narrative and sound composition, temporarily turning the studio space given to me during my residency at Headland Center for the Arts into an environment in which the visitor can experience these sonic assemblages as a composite of natural events, both destructive and regenerative, as frightening things can also be beautiful. And it was a perfect preface to the work I would do later that fall with this Arctic Space Analogs project, Everywhere We Are is the Farthest Place. At its essence, it's a gathering of sounds that have been transformed into sonic meditations. And like Tamalpais Higher, it looks to the data gathered with hydrophones, geophones, and contact mics to make hard information more integrative and sensual. In part, I was experimenting with how to keep a record of my emotional responses to the change in the environment, as I found the entire experience to be quite poetic. Days were measured in elegant afternoons. The space analog theme became this lost in space narrative running through my head as I was in a place that was seemingly isolated, but yet inhabited by others. I was listening to sounds that you would never hear on the surface of the water, like subterranean rivers intersecting in the meltwater channel, glaciers calving and communicating, the beauty and danger of nature immersion, countering silence, terrestrial vibrations and the slow rumble of the earth, and the glaciers and the ever-changing ice and conversation, the shifts and the splits giving way and always speaking in pops and cracks, the private concert of a whale song. This was all deepening my relationship to nature through the sea. And Kate, I'll have you play the videos now.
Wow, I get kind of entranced just by hearing you tell the story. I'm going to share my screen because I will need to do that to and to share my sound. Okay, there we go. And then I will share this. Once I get this out of the way. There we go.
Oh, do you have the videos? That's just the pure audio piece, and I have two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I followed the link.
Yeah, that was my first link that I sent you, but then I said,
Okay, go back.
Change
Is
things.
there going to be a visual aspect to the videos?
Yes, there's a visual aspect and a sound aspect so that it can accommodate you, Amy, in terms of
yeah,
listening.
maybe not the only one.
There's a pure, yes, it's a pure listening experience.
Did you send a different or is it the one these?
Oh no, it's different. It's on the next email I sent you.
Okay, let me go back.
One more email that I sent
Oh,
you.
I did miss that. Sorry
That's
about that.
okay.
Here we go.
All right.
For being ready.
30 feet deep.
The description for the next segment of this video is the water phone, amplified by the hydrophone and contact mic, is the primary instrument used to recreate Calvin Glacier's subterranean rivers and whale song. And this is a demonstration of the water phone. The metallic tined instrument that can be played with a bow or mallets. And the stem, which I'm holding and gripping, is hollow, as is the basin. And you can fill it with water, and then it creates this, as you hear, warping sound, which is different from when it's played dry. Here it's being played with the mallets. And it's being amplified by the hydrophone, which has been turned into a contact mic with the suction attachment. The hydrophone is typically used to be immersed in water. Sounds in the studio program, studio recording, were generated through various programs, including Cubase and Logic. The assistance of Ken Evinger Suslowitz. And the next video that we're going to see and listen to is a live performance In this next video, it will be a live performance of the work as performed by myself on the Moog Mother 32, waterphone, assorted electroacoustic instruments, and Michael Eaton playing the woodwinds, primarily the soprano saxophone and the C flute. And this was performed at the most resonant lobby of the Jefferson Market Library as part of New York Public Library. Thank you for listening. And I welcome any questions that anyone might have.
Actually, I would love it if you would describe again that instrument that you created. You're playing with the bow. It was, I don't remember if it had a name, but it was quite something. If you would describe how it looks and how you played it.
Ooh. That is the waterphone, which I happen to have right back here. That's not my invention, unfortunately. I did create some soundboards and boxes out of industrial pieces, but this is the waterphone, which is a hollow basin connected to a stem, which is also hollow. And you pour the water in that, and it has multiple tines. And when you bow it or use the mallet, it creates these ominous, rich sounds, sometimes haunting. Uh, it's an instrument that was created back in the 1960s by Richard Waters, and it, interestingly enough, contains water or can be used with water. And it's an instrument that I don't know quite how to classify it. Is it a bowed instrument? It's not a stringed instrument because it's metal, but it's been used in horror films as well as environmental nature documentaries to emulate those very sounds of rocks falling, calving glaciers, all kinds of seafaring events. Depending on how it's amplified, you'll get an assortment of sounds. And I fell in love with this instrument some time ago. And then I decided, let me get one so that I can see if I can recreate the very sounds that I heard when I was up in the Arctic. And then I found that pretty much wherever I would venture and listen to interesting sonic textures, I could use the waterphone to recreate some of that. The rest of the instrumentation is um, based on keyboards, woodwinds, and that's really to provide and create the layer of musicality for the compositions, and in particular this one.
And was there a particular source for the title of the overall project?
Yes, in terms of how I came up with the title.
Yes.
Oh, yes. So
Yes.
I was thinking about this notion of, of othering or feeling separate from things, or things being sort of singled out. When I told a few people here in the States, oh, I'm going to the Arctic, like, well, why are you going so far away? I said, well, isn't it all relative? There are people who live in Svalbard. It's the northernmost humanly habitable place on Earth, but it's quite contemporary, and uh, there's a good number of people who live there year round. And I thought, well, that's a good title for it. Everywhere we are is the farthest place. Um, on a very personal level, I was raised on Staten Island, which is a borough of New York City. It doesn't have the most savory reputation, but having been from here, I can tell you it is quite a beautiful and interesting place. But it's also deemed as being so far away from the the rhythm and the culture of the city. And interestingly enough, it's only a few miles away. I mean, it's surrounded by water, but we have several bridges, and you can get to and from. There's quite a bit of accessibility, and it may not hold as much cultural interest for many, but when one says to someone who lives in Staten Island to someone in Manhattan or Brooklyn, oh, come to Staten Island, and they're like, oh, well, it's too far. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense because in a hop, skip, and a jump, I can be in Brooklyn or Manhattan. But it's all a mindset about how we deem distance and how we deem what is on the other side of that distance. And so when I embarked on this um, expedition, it made me think about going to a place that, sure, from where I live is extremely far away, but for those who inhabit there, they have everything they need. It's very self-contained. And it also speaks to the way in which we regard the climate and the climate vulnerability and our own vulnerability to the climate change, and how some of the temperatures can be quite similar. So when we speak of, the Arctic gust or the Arctic breeze, it is very much that here in New York as it would be in, say, Svalbard.
I do have a question for you, Mary.
Yes, Cheryl.
You have quite an atmospheric soundtrack, but I couldn't tell in the first scenes what was going on. I thought I could hear people, and so I was guessing it's the ship, but then
Yes.
I don't know what happened after that. So I wonder if in another iteration you could get maybe a line or two of narration. I mean, you could still do it fairly minimalist, but it's a common issue that I've noticed with sighted people or sound artists, that they just make assumptions and they don't give me all of the information I need to really be able to appreciate the video.
You were correct in what you heard. It was ship activity. I was disembarking the barkentine and going into a Zodiac boat to then do further exploration through the fjords onto the glacier, because the boat itself can't anchor the um, to the glacier because it's just so fragile. As I was saying earlier in the piece, that um, these glaciers, these areas they're majestic, and yet they're so fragile at the same time. So
Right. You were telling us, but if you showed this to a group cold with none of that description, if there's those who can't see the screen, then would not have got that piece.
right, there wouldn't be enough sonic information to
Right,
ascertain
because
that it was a ship.
because a little small amount of minimal narration at the beginning, or maybe occasionally. I get why you didn't want to have a lot because you had a lot of atmospheric sound, but
Mhm.
a little bit more balanced to narration would have been helpful.
Sure, it can be done.
Everyone cold is a blind person. I would get more out of it with some audio description, as Cheryl was saying.
Yeah, exactly, Amy.
Mary, just
And Cheryl, your screen.
Yep.
Show right controls.
Shared.
Anyone with access to the
Whoops.
bonus.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a hazard of Zoom. Somebody else had a question?
Yeah, I just actually had an observation. My cat was sitting in a chair next to the desk and was quite disturbed by the sounds in the first video. Woke up, he was sleeping. He woke up, he was very alert. I tried to pick him up and bring him onto my lap while it was going on, and he was having none of it. He ran. So he was thinking it was some kind of crittery type stuff that he didn't like.
I think we absolutely have to experiment with this more later this evening.
No, we don't.
I'll get the cats off the ceiling if it
Yeah.
ends up being a problem.
All right. That's interesting. I know, yeah, I definitely felt an emotional reaction with that. And I think that your presentation, along with Duncan's last in April from Loud Numbers, and what their group is trying to do, and tying it to the data that they're gathering. I think that what I'm enjoying a lot about what happens in Sonification World Chat and the Geo SonNet is the number of different ways that people are working with sound and in interpreting it, and are getting. I think it's just that whole gambit of, musicality, all the explanations that you gave prior to, and your thought processes. I mean, I'm a teacher and an accessibility problem solver, definitely not an artist or sound anything. so this being exposed to other ways of thinking and organizing information, this is, I find it fascinating. So I really appreciated your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to realize that a piece like what Mary shared doesn't have to stand as research. It could be partnered with someone's scientific research project, as what Kate just said, a different perspective on it. So I could imagine someone like Amy and her research about accessible oceans, which is coming at it, her work through the lens of an oceanic researcher, and then including that as part of a presentation that also includes Mary's work, because it's also very much about the oceans. And so I'd like to see more partnerships between the researchers and the artists in terms of how their works are combined together in presentations.
Yeah, when you
So almost like a concert program. That's what I'm thinking of, a concert program or an online concert, something like that, where you could have a short presentation by Amy or someone else about their work with sonification to share geoscience data, and then an excerpt from Mary's work. Here's another way this information can be presented and shared.
Well, when you think about those, when you're working with graphs and charts or visual interpretations of data, and you also provide a visual of the thing that you're measuring, or you get closer to that combination of either sonification of that's more closely tied to data, but plus giving that experience of what it is that you're measuring, that what, I think that analog that is certainly worth exploring. So other comments, thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so I really appreciated your description of everything, as well as I enjoyed listening to the sounds and stuff. And I thought it was really interesting that in your descriptions, you had a lot of paradoxes, like you had like destructive and regenerative, isolated but also inhabited by people. And of course, your title is also kind of a paradox as well. And like what kind of, like, I wanted to ask about like how that, like, so what was your process in turning those paradoxes into sound and like developing that kind of sound?
Oftentimes when we're thank you for your comments. Thank you everybody for your feedback. Micah, I was thinking about how we're often programmed to listen to certain sounds that correspond with certain emotions, and I didn't want to do that. And that's part of the paradox, is toggling between what's expected and what's not expected. That to describe things as both beautiful and terrifying, or um, destructive and regenerative, to me, it's what's thinking about when we speak of death, and we think of death as a singular event, and I think of it as part of a life cycle, that death is not a single entity. Just like our sets of emotions and how we respond to things there's not a singularity about it. And so in composing around that, it's what happens when we're sitting by the window on any given day and the sun is shining, but then the clouds are in constant motion. And sometimes it casts a different kind of light through the window, or that we can experience a range of emotions all within a matter of moments, depending on how we react to things, but not just how we react in the moment, but to things that come up as memories or trigger responses. So that all factors into how I compose, in that it's trying to create a palette of sound that is at once relatable, but at the same time unexpected. And that there's that familiarity, but then it's going to take you somewhere else and leave something up to interpretation, leaves a little bit of margin for that.
What instruments have you, I'm wondering what instruments are your particular instruments? Are you a vocalist? Are you an instrumentalist? What do you call on?
I started off playing piano and percussion, but I've delved into many different types of instruments. From growing up, I played a lot of brass instruments. I played the French horn, the euphonium. I played the timpani, which is there's a crossover between percussion and an instrument that can be tuned at the same time. I mean, drums can be tuned. Piano is very percussive, so there's again that sort of overlapping of instruments. And then I stayed steady with the keyboards, but then I started looking at other percussive instruments. And when the waterphone came into my vocabulary, um, I started giving that a lot of attention, and then starting to look at the vibratory aspects of instruments. What happens when you take an everyday instrument and amplify it? What other kinds of sounds can it produce? Um, I take little things like like mint boxes and put in like acoustic panels and uh, sometimes put bands on them or strings and amplify them with the microphone only to get sounds that would otherwise be, you know, inert because they're so quiet. But then when they're played through a speaker and oftentimes through a delay pedal, it really does give a canyon-esque effect. And that's what you're hearing in that second video with Michael playing the flute and the soprano saxophone. He's playing through the microphone that is rigged through a delay pedal. And then it just creates this really deep, rich, cavernous texture. So right now I'm in the stage of just exploring the depths of acoustics with instruments as opposed to say focusing on one instrument as I did earlier on in my practice, or focusing on a set of instruments or a family of instruments. I'm sort of interested in just how to play anything from the very desk that I'm working at, or turn anything into, what can we turn into an instrument? That's fun for me. And
So the curiosity and the sense of play is very important to
yeah,
you.
it is. It's become more so. I think I was like that when I was much younger, and I went through a very sort of serious phase of focusing on what was presented to me as opposed to what were the possibilities with that said thing. And now I do that with the environment and space. Like, how can I play a tree? How can I play the wind? How can I play water? Uh, so I'm exploring different ways of doing that. So it's
Well, thank you.
non-traditional, but
Yeah.
encouraging others to broaden their palette.
Well, I look forward to hearing how our data scientists take this in and ponder it and come back, encourage us to come back with questions. Or if you have, after thinking about this presentation and loud numbers and along with our, expanding our own knowledge bases, do suggest topics that we'd like to explore, because I think that's where the richness of this community could help expand what we explore and be innovative. Right. We're coming down on the bottom of the hour and or the 90 minutes, and I have deeply appreciated this group today, and thank you very much. Please spread the word. We do cool, interesting things, and we talk about, and it's only going to get better from here. So thank you to our presenters today, and look forward to seeing you all. It will be up on the website. Adam was sick this week. I didn't get the new dates up, but June 18 is our next presentation, and Brandon will be talking to us about navigation on digital maps, and it's going to be super cool. So spread the word, folks. And thanks to Mary and Bruce.
Thank you.
See you all soon.
Take care.